Hi there everybody, and welcome back to my shop here at Telechron Time. Today we're going to be looking at why you should not buy one of these Telechron 711s or this particular General Electric model AB712. They're basically the same clock that was made by Telechron in the early part of the 1930s. Everybody always asks me why I charge so much money to repair one of these, okay? And I'm going to show you step by step, but I just want to start out by saying is that when you purchase one of these, this is like purchasing that used Porsche off of the internet for a really good price, and it's all fun and giggles for the first 5,000 or 6,000 miles, but when it comes to needing work, you're thrown aback about how it's going to cost so much for an oil change or rear brake pads or rotors. Okay, very expensive, and this clock is also the same way. So stick with me. I'm going to walk you through the steps that I have to take in order to get one of these clocks to work properly.
So let's start. Now, in order to understand this clock, you have to take a look at all the individual pieces, and as you can see, I have this clock pretty well torn down. I have already gone and cleaned the gears on the inside of this movement and oiled it and assembled it, but this is where the real fun begins. So let's take a look at these pieces individually.
All right, let's start out by taking a look at this case. This case was designed by a guy, his name was George Graff, and he didn't work for Telechron. He actually worked for a company called the Dura Corporation, and they were well known for making automotive parts. As a matter of fact, I think they were in business right up till 2019 or 2020, and they eventually declared bankruptcy from what I understand. But anyway, putting all of that aside, this particular case is actually very dense and it's very, very heavy. It's nickel plated, so I'm assuming that some of the alloys in this were nickel. And here's the situation with this. Typically, Telechron would design movements and then design clock cases to fit around them. In this particular case, I think it was the opposite. George designed this, gives it to Telechron, and now Telechron's stuck trying to figure out how to make a movement to fit this. And if you ever heard the expression, stuffing 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, well, this is a perfect example of that expression, and you'll see that momentarily. But now, let's take a look at the coil that goes inside this. This is the coil. And if you ever wondered where the alarm is on this clock, let me show you where it's at. It's right there. That's the alarm. Okay, watch when I plug this in. All it is a vibration. Okay, and as that's vibrating, let me unplug it there. As that's vibrating, that's also supposed to hit right here on the bell. And it's supposed to have like a bell alarm sound to it, but I don't know if you can really get a good sense of the way that's supposed to sound. So that's as complicated as it is. It's actually kind of archaic in its design. And the problem is, as you see when I first plug this in, okay, it's not making any noise whatsoever because I have to sit here and try to adjust it and find the fine line between that and having it hit the bell alarm to actually make a sound, which is very difficult to do once this is in the movement because there's not a lot of room to get your fingers in there. Now let's take a look at something as simple as the glass. If you take a look at this, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, it's chipped here, it's chipped here, there's a chip over here, the corner on this is chipped. So why is this glass always chipped on these particular clocks? I'll tell you why. Is because basically what they're doing is they're taking a soft piece of glass and they're sandwiching it between two hard pieces of metal, this and the front of the clock case on there. Okay, and what happens is that this metal just presses against here when you're trying to put everything back in, it just ends up chipping or breaking the glass. Now, the problem is if the glass breaks, you can always get another piece cut, but it's got to be the exact same thickness as this here is, because if it's too thin, all it's going to do is just slide down the face of the clock once it's set, and if it's too thick, you're going to end up breaking it again. So that's a problem. So, and then we run into this issue here as you look. Okay, take a look at the edge on this. This is a nice smooth edge on that. Can you see that? Okay, now let's go to the other edge and you're going to see that this edge is pretty well used up because somebody in all their infinite wisdom trying to get this to work was probably using a pair of pliers or needle nose and bending it. And now you can see it's really twisted up, which makes it even more difficult to set this glass back into the case. So here's another problem with the glass is that there's actually nothing here to hold this glass in once you're trying to get everything together. And it has a tendency to slip and slide. And again, this is another reason why these things break. As a matter of fact, if you look very carefully here along the edges, you're going to see somebody had super glue. Okay, they tried to glue this piece of glass in, and yes, sometimes you have to get a little creative in order to get this glass to stay in place. Now, like most of the Telechron movements from 1930, they all used a B rotor, and they all had a hollow shaft on there because this rotor was actually part of the movement, and after you put the rotor in, the second hand would actually attach to the rotor simply by pushing it into the hollow part there. So I'll show you. And this isn't very difficult to do. There's your movement, and then the rotor just slips right in there. And again, the front protrudes right there, and all you would do with this is just stick the second hand in. So the second hand on this is basically decorative. It really has absolutely no function whatsoever. Okay, so at this point I just have the coil set on the rotor. It's not mounted, it's just on there very loosely. I just want to check to see how the alarm's going to sound, so let me plug this in real quick. Okay, so the alarm seems to be working properly. Here's another issue I have to be conscious of when putting this back together. Is this piece right here. This is the power eye, which is on the front. And as I'm working on it, this thing will just want to always constantly slip and fall down like this. Okay, I have to be very careful with that because these things break very, very easily. So it's almost like I have to have 3 hands to do this. I mean, I got to have fingers dedicated to just holding the power eye in as I put this clock together. Just to show you how poorly this clock was designed. This is actually the back of the clock, and I don't know if this was designed by Telechron or by Dora. This is not the alloy like the case is. This is actually done in a stainless steel. And I want to show you what you have to do in order to put this together, because these are the mounting screws right here that you need, okay, to tighten everything together. So you have to put the mounting screw in, okay, and then after that, they have a brass spacer. Okay, and then what you need to do is you got to hold all this together. Okay, take this, okay, and then this is going to insert right there through the hole there and then go into the post right there and hopefully lock it together. But the problem is that you have to line up this, and you can see this just moved on me, okay, and this, and not to mention this, okay, which is flopping around loosely. All that has to be lined up and put through the holes on here before you could even put the screw in. And hopefully as you're doing it, pieces aren't going to fall off like that. And this is a constant problem. It's not a matter of skill to put this in. I think it's probably 50% luck in order to get this done right the first time. Okay, so I got most of this all put together, and you can see I have the power leads there. These are the leads of the light bulb. I did get the back of the clock on, and the problem with these clocks is that you don't know if you got anything right until you get it fully assembled and you test it. So let's go ahead and plug this in and see what happens. All right, so there's the alarm, and all right, that's not working. Unplug this. Now the problem I'm going to have is that all of the parts that I need to adjust on this to get all of this correctly are buried so deeply inside the movement, it's impossible for me to get my fingers in there. And many times I'm going to have to take this all apart again and start from scratch just to make tiny adjustments. Now I can tell you, just to get this far from the last part of the video that you were watching took me 30 minutes just to get the back on, get the screws in, get everything lined up properly, and to get the power connected on it. 30 minutes, just a little over 30 minutes to get that done. So let me see if I can make some adjustments without having to take this clock apart again. Yeah. I got it going on and off again, but you can see now it doesn't sound good again. Back to the drawing board on this one. Okay, so I think I got that problem fixed. So now let's see if the alarm even works. Let me pull it out for on. What I'll be looking for here is a loud click. And the alarm's only working halfway, so you can see that that bell is out of adjustment. Again, almost impossible to get into and make adjustments with my finger. I'll have to try a very small screwdriver and hope I could move it enough to make it sound half decent anyway. I think I may have gotten it. Let's turn it and see here. Yeah, keep going, keep going. I guess it would help if I turned it on. There it goes. Oh, definitely much better. You can see that power eye still just wants to keep plopping out of here. Yeah, look, see? Now it doesn't want to shut off at all. I'm telling you, this is just a piss poor design. You fix one thing, something else just falls out of adjustment or breaks or falls out. Well, I had to take this all off of the base. It's just too cumbersome to work with the base on. Put that aside. Well, trying to make adjustments. Now this piece just fell out the bottom. Finally, I think I got it. I don't know. That works. It's off. It's on. Should be working okay. Yep. All right, let me try to put it back on the base and see what happens. All right, now that I got everything together, it appears, it's time to go ahead and set the hands. So the first thing I got to do is set the alarm hand. So we got to turn this. There we go. We're going to go ahead and set the alarm for 3 o'clock and see how close we are. Okay. Let's turn the alarm on. Let's spin the hands. 1, 2, and here we go. Okay, so I'm about 10 minutes off. Okay, so I've gone and readjusted the hand, so let's try this again. We're going to go ahead and set this now for 8 o'clock. That looks good there. Okay, turn the alarm on. Usually if you can get this to plus or minus 7 minutes of the actual time, you're doing pretty darn good. So, as you can see, I'm within about 3 minutes of actual time. And we're going to leave it go with that.
Now here's something you won't see every day. This is my shop lizard. As you can see, he's wrestling with a moth right now. This particular species of lizards, they're territorial. He's actually claimed this entire area of my pegboard as his home. He's been living here for about 6 months. I've been watching him trying to get that big moth down his throat. He had a tail. I don't know what happened to it though. But he's pretty used to me. He'll sit up there for hours and watch me. And like I said, he's used to me because most of the time these lizards won't even let you get this close to them before they run off.
Well, today's February 15th, and most of the nation is under terrible, terrible snowstorms and bitter freezing cold, and here we are in Florida. It's about 84 degrees. I just thought I'd do this to rub it in a little bit. So let's get back to work here. Anyhow, I set this clock up last evening to make sure it's going to run before we go any further with it, and right now it's been running absolutely perfect. So let's see if we can't get this back together. All right, and here comes the fun part. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this glass in here. And it only goes up to a certain point because there's a notch right there on the dial. And that notch fits into another notch on the inside of the clock case. All right, so you gotta very gently, come on. There it goes. Okay, so I have that in there. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple of the screws in here because I need to see if that glass is going to slip around or what because of that chewed up edge that somebody did on that dial. Okay, I have 2 screws in there already. I have them tight, but not super tight, because obviously I don't want to put too much pressure on the glass, but right away I can see that this glass is going to slip. See that? Now you understand why somebody tried to super glue it in there, so we'll see if we can't come up with a way to keep that glass a little bit more steady. Alright, so what do we do to overcome this little problem? What I did here is I took a couple pieces of small rod and I adhered them to the inside of the case. And obviously I'm not looking to glue the glass down like the last person did. What I'm trying to do is give this glass a ledge to sit on. So let's see how this is going to work. There we go. That glass is in there. I'm going to put my finger behind it just in case it wants to fall out, but you can see it doesn't have a tendency to slide like it was before. So let's go ahead and put the clock together and see how that works. Okay, so just finishing up on these screws, and I have them tightened just right. Notice I said just right, not too tight. You torque these down, you're going to put too much pressure on that glass, and you can kiss it goodbye. All right, so now you can see I have this completed, and that glass is not moving anywhere. So that little trick seemed to work pretty well. Okay, now comes the tricky part of putting the base back on, and this big knot that has to stay inside. Oh, come on. Tell where it's set. There we go, I think I got it. 2 screws to hold this on. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Not that it matters too much, but if I'm not mistaken, it just dawned on me. I think there's supposed to be an opaque cover that goes on top of that light bulb, so you just don't have that big hole there. I could be wrong, but I know a lot of these clocks that I did had that cover on them, but this one is missing that particular cover, if it even had one to begin with. Yeah, so we'll get this clock cleaned up a little bit. Personally, I haven't found anything better than just chrome polish on this case. If any of you ever tried anything different and found out you got amazing results, go ahead and leave that in the remarks section there. I'd be interested in knowing. So I've gone ahead and set this clock up for testing. I have it sitting right next to my own personal 1930 Revere Westminster clock. I just want to end this video by saying I put as much labor time into this particular clock as I did into this big clock. What's the reason? Well, this clock here was well designed and highly engineered. This clock, not so well designed and not so highly engineered. So as you see in my video, there are several reasons why you need to avoid one of these clocks unless you're willing to put the money into them. So again, I want to thank you for stopping. Take care, and we'll see you on the next video.